Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in. My name is Dan Roth, and we are here for the choices we make, Mark Talley and the Agents for Advocacy. Now, I want to get something out of the way. Why is a white guy interviewing a gentleman who lost his mother in a shooting by a racist? And that is because Jackie Abram, author of Hush Money, asked me to do so, and it's our responsibility to use our platform to promote equality. However, in order to do this, I needed to do it the right way, which is why I asked and graciously had Kesha Kent come on and accept to host this very special event with me. Thank you, Kesha, for believing in me and also taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on and have this, what some are going to assume is heavy, but may have some lighter sides of the conversation.
It is such a joy to be here, and you already know how I feel. I'm excited for this and a little anxious at the same time. There's a lot going on in the inside of me, but I'm going to lean into that sitting with me and all the things that I'm feeling in this moment. So I implore you all to do the exact same thing.
And we appreciate that. And when I said some lighter moments, I want everybody to know that when something happens as tragic as the Buffalo shooting, where Mark lost his mother, it changes everything. But that doesn't mean that the individual instantly changes into somebody. And there's this expectation sometimes that they're going to behave in a different way, that they're going to just be a different person. I want to make very clear that during the following 90 minutes, we are not asking Mark to code switch. We are not asking Mark to be anybody that he is not. He is a young man with an incredible, slightly dirty sense of humor. And you will hear that as we go along. Now, before I bring him on, I do have an honor and privilege to introduce our third host that was able to join us at the last moment. She is an international best-selling author. You've seen her on this program before. She is somebody I am so dearly lucky to call my friend, Miss Jackie Abram.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
So with no further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Mark Talley. Mark, thank you for being here, my friend.
Oh, glad to be here. It's about to be a fun next 90 minutes.
Okay.
It really is. And for those watching, Jackie, Kesha, and myself are really here to provide Mark a stage. We have not put any limitations on what we talk about. This is an open forum to discuss what he wants. Now, I want to make clear that it's not going to all be about what happened in Buffalo. I know Mark is passionate about a number of things, including the nonprofit he started, Agents for Advocacy. He also told me he wants to discuss the student loan reform that we just went through. So this is going to be much more conversational than I think I even expected coming into it. But the main objective is we're going to be here to guide the conversation. Mark's here to lead it and really discuss what he wants to. So Mark, this is a bit of a precarious position because normally I'd start and say, you'll introduce yourself. I think in this scenario, people automatically know of you, of your mother, of the situation. So they're coming in with a bit more knowledge than they normally would. What I'm going to ask you to do instead is I really just want to hear what's on your mind at the start of this. And really get your gauge for where you want to go with it. The mic is on you. Let's jump off and roll.
All right, absolutely. I like that. I like that right there. Before I begin, Kesha, I love the hula hoop earrings. I usually make jokes with my friends about women. If they got the hula hoop earrings, those some heartbreakers. So
My husband would agree.
They break your heart easily.
Hmm.
Jackie, my wife told me not to tell this to you because she thought it would be an insult.
Uh-huh.
Once again, I'm kind of abrasive and hard-headed, and I don't like taking people's suggestions, so I'm still going to say it. With the second book, love the anticlimactic ending, because that's
Yeah.
Yes.
not the
It was a
spoiler.
shock.
Everybody. That's how you just get tired, just want to leave. So I love
Yes. Yes.
So, really quick, since you brought that up, I want to make mention of something because this is an opportunity for people throughout the show. So, back on the first episode when we did Overcoming Corporate, when Jackie was on, we talked about how we are going to do a book drive.
Yes.
And every book that was sponsored, which every sponsored book is $6.45, is going to go towards an event in East Buffalo on September 30th. Now, my commitment and putting my money where my mouth was to say I will match every book sponsored. We didn't double what we set out to do. We didn't triple. I'm pretty sure we could quadrupled it.
Yes, we did.
Yes, and I want to make mention that Mark yesterday committed to sponsoring 50 books. Now, this is a gentleman that did not have to do that.
Yes.
And he did out of the graciousness of his heart. So here's the thing. Jackie, how many books do we have sponsored so far? Do you know the number?
So we have, just from the announcement that you made, okay, not counting what I had done before I came on your show. So we have over 300 books just from what you did in your announcement. But we have, it's amazing, but we also have so many other loving allies, accomplices, abolitionists of the Black community who stepped up before I even knew who Mark was and before I even met Dan, who donated to this initiative because I had been working on a trip to Buffalo for quite some time. In that, Buffalo is near and dear to me. I have family there. A good bulk of my family lives in Buffalo and Niagara Falls. So when the racist massacre occurred there, it really touched me, and I wanted to give to this community that I know from personal experience based on, having grown up with family members there, don't have a lot of money to spend on, books when they need to put food on the table. So I wanted to give them something that they could use that was tangible, but that was free. And when I put it out there, you guys answered the call. And Dan, your voice carries a lot of weight, my friend. And you brought
It's
the
so weird
rest.
for me to hear that. So let's give everybody something that they could bite on. So we said that our book drive personally was going to end on this. We're not necessarily doing that. The event's on September 30th. However, if you're watching and you feel compelled and you want to sponsor a book, every book sponsored is $6.45. Reach out to Jackie. Her information is going to be in the chat. It's going to be all over. Whatever you feel compelled to do. Now I'm going to throw one more at you. If you feel even more compelled and you don't just want to sponsor a book, I highly suggest reading Jackie's books. So at the same time, sponsor a book and then buy a copy of each for yourself. And by the way, I want to touch on something Mark said. I think the power was in Jackie ending it the way that she did, because it's the reality of the situation. She wasn't taking this assertion that there was going to be a positive ending. Now, I want to link this back because we're really here to talk about Mark. No matter what happens from here on out, no matter what happens in your life and your career, there can be happiness, but it's never going to be that complete happy ending because, and I'm going to get a little bit sensitive here, you lost somebody that you really wanted to share that with. I want to make sure that before we go too far, we don't lose sight of honoring your mother. If you don't mind, can you just touch on what your mother meant to you. And really, I just want to implore you, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
She was one of two people who really knew what type of person I was. She was a very lucky, happy-spirited woman. Loved her family, loved people coming over, loving to cook for people. She didn't like my dark humor jokes as much, but I mean, I got her to laugh at one or two of them occasionally. Me, I'm like 180 degrees from her. I hate having people come over my place. Even if I invite you over, I still don't want you there. Really hate being around family that much. I don't like talking to that many people. I'm just like right now, once this ends, I'm just laying on the couch, putting on some TV. All the lights, all the windows are shut. So being around her, we kind of met each other in the middle. And once the tragedy happened, I haven't told that most people, but I actually got to see the video. And I made a joke to my wife. I told her if she would have bought the cane with her, she probably could have hit some of those bullets. And my wife's mouth, kind of like what Kesha's doing right there, she hated the joke. I laughed and a little tear came out because I knew my mother's probably looking down at me, ready to criticize me on that joke. But once again, we definitely had a great relationship with each other that wasn't understood by most of the other family because I really didn't talk with most of my other family. So once this happened, I gave them like a 1 to 2 month buffer zone where I say I'll take the do not disturb off my phone. I'll unblock people. But yeah, right now, everybody's back blocked.
Well, and if I can just jump in, Dan, that's actually one of the reasons I was just so taken aback by, Mark contacting me, because as I got to know him, I realized, he wasn't a social butterfly. He wasn't an extrovert. He wasn't accustomed to reaching out to perfect strangers. And I was actually introduced to Mark by a beautiful young woman who was in a support group that I host. She just said, I have a friend that you may want to talk to. And I said, okay, what's your friend's name? And she said, Mark Talley. And I said, okay, I'll reach out to him. So I reached out to him, not knowing who he was. And I said, your friend Kalina was in my support group today. And she said, I should talk to you. So what would you like to share with me? She said you might be interested in doing something at this Buffalo event. And he says, well, yeah, I heard that you're doing an event in Buffalo, that you're traveling there and you're bringing your books. And, I was thinking maybe I could be in your event with you. And I said, okay, well, what would you like to do in the event? I would love to have you. And he said, well, my mom was killed while she was grocery shopping at Tops. And I froze. I literally froze. And that's how my relationship with Mark began. That moment of, he just says it nonchalantly, my mom was killed at Tops. And it hit me. And I was like, wait, did I just hear what I think I heard? And, and that's your personality, very humble, very low key. You just said, hey, this is what happened. And, you're coming out here. Why don't I help?
He's low key until you get to know him. So first, let me say that, Kesha, please feel free to jump in as often as you want to, being my co-host here. But I think it's important to point out that I'm hearing this, Mark, but then if we look at your website, and I'm scrolling your nonprofit across the bottom, agentsforadvocacy.org, and I see the pictures because you were thrust into the spotlight. You're a guy that doesn't like being in the spotlight. You're thrust into a position where everybody's asking you questions. You're taking photos with everybody under the sun. You've got Michelle Obama. You got all these different people. and you choose, let's be clear, you choose to create this nonprofit where you know you're going to have to be out there. I know that you're a humble guy. I know your sense of humor. But when I take a look at that, it's obvious that your mission, that your depth of soul in honoring both yourself and your mother overtakes any hesitancy in speaking out. You may speak for an hour and then go and not hide, but you may go and watch TV for 3 hours, but you're still doing it. So I think it's important that we touch on, can you dive into that a little bit and what is giving you that cojones to do that? And I said that specifically knowing that you'd appreciate it.
Excellent job, Chuck. We're about to have a lot of dark humor jokes here, a lot of double entendres. Basically, I always, once again, I would joke around with my mother and vice versa. Just man up. When she complained about some back pain or knee pain, I just slap her on the shoulder, tell her man up. When she saw me cracking my knees all the time, she would just tell me to man up. So regarding me doing all my public appearances, being out in the community to do my events, talking to interviewers, talking to people on podcasts, it's all for the greater good. I mean, back when I used to have epilepsy, they told me you're going to have to stop drinking. And I hated that part because back in my younger 20s, I was out here. But once again, I had to stop drinking because it was for the greater good. I don't want to, walk across the street one day, have a seizure, or I don't want to constantly have to be on medication because I'm refusing to drink. So sometimes you have to you have to just get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's how it kind of is for me, because I know, once again, I started this for a reason, and I want to see that reason, come to fruition. And hopefully everything I'm doing, step by step is leading to this. So even though I may not like being out in the spotlight or being next to the vice president at the time, and I thought I was going to get shot that day. Side story, she got up to give me a hug. So I didn't know, should I touch her or not? So I got pretty close to her to put my arm on her back, and I saw all these Secret Service servicemen start to stand up. So I just kind of hurried up, slightly tapped her away, just sat back down. But I just got to get comfortable being uncomfortable to do what I want to accomplish.
So let's touch on that. Agents for Advocacy, where did it come from? What's the mission of the org?
I'll even add one more thing to that. And where do you see it growing? Where do you see the impact being? What is it that you want to happen with the nonprofit?
Oh, I can tell you that one right there. For Kesha's question, I want it to be one of the largest nonprofit organizations in Buffalo. And hopefully I can make it to New York State. Doing this, you have to kind of be a realist. Do I see it being one of the largest in the world? Not really, no. I was looking up some of Bill Gates' nonprofits he have, and I would love it to be up there. I doubt it, but it'll just make me just so happy if it can be one of the largest in Buffalo. And it just came to me. I really don't even know how I got the name. I just started first saying, I just want to start advocating for stuff in the community regarding socioeconomics, because most people, especially on the east side of Buffalo, they really couldn't tell you what socioeconomics is. So really out of nowhere, I just started saying, I'm just going to be an agent for advocacy. And lo and behold, that became the name. I started looking up some websites, found that it was free. I was able to purchase it. The main goal with Agents for Advocacy is I want to uplift and provide more awareness for socioeconomics, equity, and equality in the community. because most people don't understand how one thing can relate to everything, and how you can get trapped in this whole circle and you don't know, thinking that it's your fault, when in actuality it's systems, institutions that's been in place for you to fail. So it's not necessarily nothing you're doing wrong. No, you just happen to be born into this situation, like how I was. Fortunately, by the grace of God and my mother, seeing I was starting to become a statistics at my first high school I went to, I was able to get put into a better, more prominent high school in the area at Canisius. And from there, it's truly been a blessing.
So, Mark, it's an incredible mission. And I want to say I love that you have clarity on both the size and the impact. A lot of people, when they start out, these nonprofits have these grand thoughts of going global. And sometimes it's realistic, but more often it's not. And I've had your website pulled up. I've been scrolling through it because I want people to be able to see it. So there's a couple of things I'm noticing, and I really want to give people a call to action. That's why we're here. We're here to gain you the support and the contact that you need. So let's start backwards and say, what kind of action are you looking for people to take?
Get more involved in their local political system, get more involved in community events, get more involved in socioeconomical crimes that happen, worldwide. I know we're going to talk about this later, but a little bit regarding the loans that's getting canceled. You can see the people, using subliminal racism, saying, if they sign a contract, you should have to pay your student loans back. But when you have, for example, African American women, they get paid close to, don't quote me, maybe 55 to 65 cents on the dollar compared to a white man. So it's going to have to be hard to pay back that loan back, where you're not even graduating, getting the career at a fair start to pay it back. So you're kind of having to work twice, maybe 3 times as hard to get the average pay you should have got once you graduated. And not to mention, at 18 years old, nobody in my family ever went to college. There was no financial person I could talk to regarding a loan. I had no idea what interest rates are, no idea what APR was, no idea what's a good one. So I just saw, 25%, thinking I could pay, 25% interest, I could pay that back there, telling me to go to college to get a 4-year degree and graduate. But then once again, that's when the structural racism comes into play, because it's not designed for you to succeed. It's designed for you to just work hard your whole career.
Yeah. And you make a great plan. I promise you, right after this, we're going to jump into the education and loan forgiveness. But I want to make sure that I don't lose sight. So is there something somebody could take action of within the Agents for Advocacy? So somebody goes to the site, says, take action. How can I be actionable with Agents for Advocacy?
You can provide donations to my Cash App and Venmo. For Cash App, it is Social Change 89. For Venmo, it is Agents for Advocacy. All donations going towards my events. I have a current event happening this Sunday, August 28th at 1 p.m. I'll be providing close to 500 children of low socioeconomic status backgrounds with book bags, pens, pencils, rulers, calculators, binders, notebooks. My next event after that will be in Thanksgiving. I'm doing I don't like calling it like a homeless drive or feed the homeless, but I don't know any correct PC name for it. So I'm just feeding the homeless, and I'm trying to get some upscale, up class Thanksgiving food, not just the dry slice of turkey, some watered down potatoes and gravy. And I'm trying to rent out a good banquet hall so they can sit down, enjoy this, don't have to be worried about rushing out. on Christmas, I'm trying to provide Christmas gifts to the unfortunate children out there, the ones in detention centers, behavioral health homes, ones in wards of the states, those in justice centers. Because, nobody's really thinking about getting them a toy on Christmas Eve. So when I say become an agent for advocacy, I'm talking about advocating for those who can't advocate for themselves and they don't know what to advocate on.
And Mark, if I can jump in there, something you said always stands out in my mind, and maybe you can help everyone see, kind of step into your shoes as someone who lives in East Buffalo for a minute. You said that East Buffalo is a community, and I believe, I'm paraphrasing, but I believe your words were that gets the leftovers, that gets the scraps. So the work that you're doing is actually very much needed in East Buffalo, because even though there may have been, school drive for school supplies going on for months now in other parts of New York, all of those supplies that are gathered never really make it to East Buffalo. Is that a fair assessment?
And absolutely. And that's why I talk about both equity and equality, because people think they're both. I mean, it's equal. There's probably a good same number of drives taking place in every neighborhood for those children, but it's not equity because, it's so much more children struggling on the east side compared to others. So yeah, if there's, hypothetically 5 drives taking place in the east, north, and west and south side, yes, it's equal, but the children in the east side, they're struggling more, and more than likely is going to need more than 5 number of drives for it to be, equal to the other communities.
And so the work that you're doing is focused specifically on filling a gap and a need in East Buffalo, where you're in a food desert, where it's harder to get, those fresh produce and fresh meat, where kids need school supplies, but, affordability is a big issue.
Absolutely. I mean, people right now on the east side, even before the developers buying up all the property there to raise the rents to $2,500, people are already paying, a good 50 to 60% of their salary to pay their current rent. So now you have, the gentrification happening when people can't afford what they already have, and now people are coming in to buy the property and buy the housing so they can just raise everything to kick everybody out. Yeah. And these people are going to have to go somewhere, and they're already struggling as it is. So my goal is to, once again, just advocate for these people and just teach them game. This is what the socioeconomics is. This is what people are trying to do. This is what redlining is. This is what gerrymandering is. This is what a food desert is. Like, this is an overall system. This isn't just one thing. Like, the taxes that you're paying, that is a whole system that what you think is maybe going to is probably not. Like, people complain, it's too much taxes, but they don't know, your favorite NFL team, your favorite company, they're not paying no taxes. I'm 33 years old. I 100% say I probably paid more taxes than Jeff Bezos. And there's no way I shouldn't have to be paying more taxes than him.
Right.
So really quickly, I wanted to bring up this message. AJ is asking if you're registered as a non-for-profit 501c3, because he just helped get a grant, and there's a lot of grants out there for nonprofits.
AJ, I wish I would have met you sooner. Definitely wish I had, but I finally, you would think this process would be a lot easier than it is, but I finally found a great nonprofit attorney. She's going through the short form right now to get me registered. So she said in about 3 months, I will be an official nonprofit around that time, come November 23rd.
Yay, that's wonderful.
So we will put you in contact with AJ. Look, I sent a message in our private chat because this can't, and I refuse to allow it to be about me, or it has to be about you. But I'm committing to donate to your toy drive. We will also set something up on social, on LinkedIn to do that. You know, I'm a big believer that you focus in one area and finish that instead of spreading yourself too thin. Otherwise, you barely make a dent. So that is one thing I will help take on with you as a father and as a parent. I want to say one thing, and then I want to touch on something you mentioned. What's your wife's name?
Rosh.
Rosh. Rosh, if you're watching, and I hope you are, I just want to say thank you, because it takes a powerful, earnest, supportive spouse to help people get through those dark times. And I don't want to go through this entire event without acknowledging what you have done, even if you've done it simply because out of love, because you know it's right. You still deserve that acknowledgement. So, Rosh, thank you.
No, it's funny that you said that, cause the day once the police called to tell me that my mother was one of the victims, she ended up taking me into the bathroom to hold me and cry. And once again, me being me, I'm just standing there stoic. It's like, what's this for? Why are we in the bathroom? What you crying for? It's not even your mother. So I'm trying to joke with her, and she is just bawling out crying. So I'm not that emotional of a person. My mother and my wife now can attest to that. So it was a tough time that night. And she always goes back saying, she's been my emotional support. I joke with her and say, what emotional support? Because I haven't been emotional, but it's a fun back and forth between us. But she would definitely love that you just said that. She would really appreciate it.
Well, it's important to mention because it's often the people that don't get the recognition that deserve it the most. So I want to go into this conversation on the education system because I know it's so important to you, but you mentioned something that goes right in hand with it. And I think you're going to appreciate bringing this up because it's something we really haven't talked about on this show. When we talk about systemic racism and we talk about signing contracts, if we look at it realistically, and for those that are watching, we're about to talk about the real history of America, not the whitewashed. So let's take the blinders off as we dive in, okay? So when we talk about the real history of America, when we go back to slavery, slaves were made to sign contracts, but at the same time, they weren't allowed to learn how to read. So they were specifically instructed to sign something that they had no comprehension or ability to comprehend that they were signing, allowing these slave owners to go through. So I thought this would be a good opportunity if you, Kesha, and Jackie wanted to touch on this, because this is not a new phenomenon when you're talking about signing these contracts with this reform. And if we take it a step back further, if we take it back to this point, then we can understand the context that's led to that point.
Well, what I'll say about that is it actually reminds me of what's going on right now with Brittany Griner in Russia. They had this woman sign a contract that was written in Russian that she couldn't understand. And the interpreter that they brought that was supposed to interpret this contract didn't do a very good job of doing that. And so, in that situation, here's this Black woman who is signing a contract. She's in prison in Russia, okay? She could serve up to 10 years. And, she's signing this contract and she has no idea what it says, but she's in a position where she has to, if she wants any chance of trying to be able to negotiate her freedom. And I don't know about you, but that is terrifying to me.
I think just nobody really cares about it because, first she's a woman, then she's a black woman, and then she's a lesbian black woman at that. So, I mean, most of the people, even in this country, they can't even identify who she is, why she's there. Then they judge her saying, well, she shouldn't have the marijuana vape pen on her. But I know, and I believe it was a couple of months, if not a few years ago, a same thing happened with believe a white young man was over there as well, had drugs on him, and he was out instantaneously.
It's very heartbreaking. And, it just goes back, I think, to Dan's point about, being put in a position, as Black people to sign your life away or to sign something that is going to have a profound impact on the rest of your life. And you can't even read it. You don't know what it says.
Having to put your faith in a system that's been broken for so long that you constantly, it's like you're perpetuating the same cycle. You're believing. And when you think about the national attention that it's not getting, speaking of Brittany, but thinking of the attention that she's not getting, that if the attention was placed on that nationally in this media, things could change. And we know that, and we've seen it happen with other races, and we see it get to this point where we're pushing this same threshold. We're pushing, and again, putting faith in a broken system. I'm hopeful, though, that as we continue to call it out and continue to show up, allies and abolitionists around the world can speak up and say, this isn't right. And as we continue to push, Dan showing up and thinking of even the mindset of understanding a contract. How do you even get to a place where you don't have the means to even understand it, but you're constantly battling to try to get a place, to try to get ahead and pushing and thinking of the barriers that are already set up and in place to make it even more impossible for you. I'm so thankful that AJ brought up that point, Mark, because when you think about the possibilities of what you can do, I'm excited that you mentioned that you have an attorney that's working with you so that you can move the needle, and those individuals that are in the community can see somebody that looks like them who's showing up in spite of, because we won't remove all the things, but we can constantly show up in spite of. So I just wanted to add that too.
Yeah, I got to show up in proper attire. People, I've been hearing in the community, they're getting tired of me showing up in sweatpants or tank top. It's hot right now, so I don't want to be walking around in the street.
Show up.
Be honest with you, Mark.
Show up.
I'm the same way. Like, I'm a parent. I've got sweat shorts on underneath this. My friend who's doing my website was like, in order for us to get good video, we need you to be in collars. You can't you can't have any t-shirts on. Okay. Really?
Just
like,
you
gotta stop
Another thing too, like I don't know what to call it or how to describe it. I think it's going too far to say it's racism. I think that's not that. It's like, what's the point in dressing for a part you already have experience and background doing? I mean, it's one thing if I'm just coming out there, some beat shorts and some sandals trying to do something, but no, if I'm some khaki shorts, khaki pants, some sweatpants, all regular plain, either tank top or just a regular shirt, that should be good enough. Like, it's no point in always having to get dressed up to do something, because like, who am I trying to look pretty for?
And that goes back to the point of being authentically you. And I think it's so important to make sure that we're mindful of who are you authentically, because if you're showing up with the idea of what somebody else thinks you should do, you're not even comfortable anyway.
That's why I've had to go through a few things.
Yes.
Well, isn't that just code switching of a different form?
Oh Oh my gosh, that's exactly what it is.
Yes.
Like,
By the way, real quick, I have to do this. Mama, good to see you. Robin, her Graham is in the house. It's John Graham Jr.'s mother. I have to.
Hey, I claim her as my second mom too. So hey, mom.
Auntie, I say auntie. From Clubhouse.
oh, I wanted to say a dark joke right there. I wanted to so bad. I want to.
I told Kesha that I won't police you, that she has to. So
I'm gonna do it. I gotta do it. The open is right there. Well, Mama Graham, I have a position for a mother right now. If you want to take that.
Oh.
I'm
Mark,
accepting applications.
I'll tell you that she would do it with open arms and looking at the son that she produced in this world. I think that it's an honor. It would be absolutely an honor.
If you can make some banana pudding cake or some candy yams.
Okay,
and we ain't best friends right there. I saw you say, oh.
I hate bananas, but I'm going to put a spin on this because I'm very good at putting a spin on things. I'm going to say that what you're doing right now is role modeling, because while you're telling dirty jokes, while you're being dark humor, you're also showing people that they can be themselves during dark times and not be judged because of it. So I appreciate you for that. The actual comments, I don't know how to take. I'm not going to lie.
No.
There's some that like I'm laughing about, but then there's others I'm like, I thought I was an asshole.
I've been called a lot worse. Like once the terrorist attack first happened, and I was having to do all these interviews, all these famous people. I'll be honest, I was feeling myself just a little bit. So I just wanted to go to YouTube and read the comments. And man, like the famous people always tell you, just don't go into the comments.
Don't read the comments.
And I saw one person saying, it looks like he's happy his mother dead. Like he's not crying. He's not showing no emotion, always looking happy. Oh. And that one got my blood boiling a little bit. I felt like, looking him up, punching him, stepping on his throat. I can also get real violent fast, so I apologize. Apologize, Dan, on your platform.
No, on my platform, there's no reason to apologize. I want you to be authentically you. I told you this wasn't going to be about code switching. I just am not okay with that. So I wouldn't want you to be anything else. At the same point, we have the relationship where I could say to you, I don't know how to react to this because I don't. Like, a lot of people try to have this fake reaction. I'll tell you straight up if I don't know how to react. That being said, you bring up a really great point because we all internalize things differently. Now, you say you're not emotional. That doesn't mean you're not feeling what you're going through. It just means that you're internalizing it a different way. And it's not it should be on nobody else's mind, lips, or heart to feel that they have the right to judge you based on that.
Like when it comes to me getting emotional, I only seem to have emotions in my dreams for some reason, because I've had a few dreams where my mother was in them, and I just started breaking down, just constantly crying in them and seeing her and talking to her. And then when I wake up, it's like I'm back to normal. I remember myself crying in them, but I can't cry or feel it here physically.
Well, and if I can just jump in for a minute, and I'm just going to speak right now from my own personal experience. And I've been wondering this about you, Mark, actually, since the day we met. And so I'm just going to throw it out there and see what you think about what I'm about to say. For me, living and working in pure hell for nearly 2 decades, it was a total of 18 years. So, nearly 2 decades. I was suffering trauma that at the time I didn't realize I was suffering, if that makes sense. And one of the coping mechanisms that I used to deal with what was happening to me, because there were a lot of physical manifestations of what was happening to me. Like one of the biggest things was I gained a ton of weight. And so if you've seen any of my older pictures where, I was looking like Janet Jackson, and then all of a sudden I've gained all this weight. And now, in addition to being traumatized at work, I'm 6 feet tall and I'm not slim and trim anymore. I'm big as a house. And in order for me to deal with the trauma, I had to use jokes and humor and comedy. And that was a coping mechanism. So I would tell people, in order to cope with what was happening to me, yeah, I started out looking like Janet Jackson, but yeah, now I look like Medea. And, people would laugh and I would laugh too, but that was my way of coping. And so I wonder if any of the humor that you have, growing up Black, living while Black, surviving while Black, existing while Black, has comedy been a coping mechanism for you, not just with the tragedy, at tops, but just throughout the course of your life? Because that was something that I noticed as I go back and I evaluate myself and I look at my circumstances now from a different lens. I say, oh, wow, I used comedy as a way to cope, to deal with what was happening to me.
Well, before I answer that, I first want to say you look good to me still. I mean,
oh, thank you. Thank you.
in another lifetime, in a whole different multiverse, if I was single, I'll try to ask for your phone number.
Oh,
I'll try. I'll shoot my shot. Who knows? Maybe another.
I have to agree with that. She is awfully good looking. I have to agree with
oh,
that.
thank you.
Universe.
Well, I'm finding myself again. If you look at some of the older videos and interviews that I did when I first came on LinkedIn, I was definitely in a different headspace then. I've stepped into my power. But it wasn't always the case. And it was through the love of folks on LinkedIn, like you guys and just so many other people who embraced me on this journey, which is why I'm so glad those same people have embraced you, Mark, because I know, it's a dark place to be sometimes.
Oh, it is. But to answer your question, also, Dan, I will ask for your phone number too in another But actually, you two, Kesha, I'm gonna forget about you. Actually, I don't know. I got to see the hula hoop earrings. I got to see how big they are first. If they're any,
what the hell did we put on today?
Yeah, question, Jackie. The humor isn't helping me cope. I've always been a dark humor person. But I do find my personality is changing because, once again, it was only two people who I didn't want to be, more so my mother, but I didn't want to be judged for what I did, how I acted, and what I say. But with the passing of my mother, I found myself becoming a lot more colder, abrasive, a more in-your-face personality. A lot more ruder, my wife would say. Not taking any mess from people anymore. So probably that's what's most been happening and affected by me. Just a change of my personality.
So
I always loved making people uncomfortable. That was always a guilty pleasure of mine, but now I get to do it more authentically, but better also, and be a lot more abrasive with it.
well, you get to surprise people is what you get to do, because now like there's this expectation. You got this nonprofit you're starting. Now you get to go up to a stage. People think you're going to talk about your nonprofit, and you get to tell a dirty joke and watch as people's faces just go, what the?
Hey, if they like it, they'll stay. If not, kick rocks.
So we have about 40 minutes left. I know we want to get into a couple of topics that you wanted to discuss. I got to be honest, this entire talk about asking for people's number got me way thrown off. Shit. I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, you know, I've read Jackie's book. If I said that same thing, like, no, I would be another chapter in Jackie's book. So,
It's a lot of stuff.
I'm not touching that one with a
Second book.
10-foot
I'm
pole.
not going to go too deep into it.
No, we're not going to go too deep. We want people to buy and read the book, but yeah, there's going to be no white boys going down that road again. I don't mean because you're not worth it, Jackie. I just mean I'm not. What the hell? Kesha, please take over.
Wait, that was you she was talking about in the second book now?
Oh, that's hilarious.
You know, there's a lot of parts of my life I don't remember. So I have a lot of repressed memories.
You guys.
You know,
That's a good
maybe,
segue.
I don't know.
That's a really good segue to the book.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
just so funny. So, you know, what's interesting is I've written 2 books. And the second
Tell us
one,
the name of those books. Talk to us about the names of those books. You have them to show us on screen?
I didn't bring them up
That's
to my
okay.
desk
Tell us
today, but
the names
I've
of
got the
them.
first one. Here's the
Good.
first one. You know, this is my author's copy. So, you know, it's got, you know, not for resale across the front because this is the one that has all my markings. And this one is Hush Money, How One Woman Proved Systemic Racism in Her Workplace and Kept Her Job. And I'm actually reading this book for the first time, okay, in my support group. My support group on LinkedIn is called Coping While Black as We Work While Black. And so in this support group, we're doing a deep dive into each chapter of Hush Money. And I am actually reading my book for the first time because after I wrote it with my daughters, I couldn't go back and look at it, you know, so it's very raw. There's no polishing. There's no editing. You know, I didn't have an editor fix it. I just uploaded it as is because I self-published. And I never looked at it again because I couldn't. I did interviews and I talked about it, but I could never go back and read it. And so now we're reading it. And in fact, I had to take a couple of weeks off from our last session because I thought I was doing pretty good reading my book until we got to chapter 6. And in our last session, I lost it. I had an on-screen recorded breakdown to what I read as I'm, you know, experiencing this. And it was such a visceral reaction that I had to say, guys, I've got to step away from this and do what, you know, my sister Future Kane says, to sit with myself for a minute. So I took a few weeks off to just sit with myself because I was like, wow, that hit me harder than I expected it would. And I wrote the book. And so
that's powerful.
Yeah, I had to walk away for a minute, and now we're going to come back and go into chapter 7. But just the mental toll reading my own book for the first time took on me. It really gave me a sense of what people are experiencing when they read it for the first time too.
Give us a snippet of just a 10-20 seconds of an overall view of the book.
So Hush Money is a book that I wrote from a place of pain. After my 6-figure career in higher education was killed by racists, and I found myself suffering trauma that was so severe, I actually planned to kill my boss. And I didn't just think about it. I actually contemplated all the different ways that I might kill my boss and get away with it without it affecting my kids, because I had just gotten to a point in my career where I couldn't make it. I'm a smart woman. I've done everything that the world says you have to do to be successful. I work hard. I've got the credentials. I'm ambitious. But racism kept getting in the way. So by the fifth time of having my career stripped away from me and finding myself losing my home, my income, my ability to feed my kids, and living out of an extended stay because you've lost everything, I decided by the fifth time, okay, I'm done. So I'm going to kill my boss to remove at least one racist from the world. And then I'm going to kill myself.
Wow.
But God intervened. And when he intervened, hush money was the result of that. So hush money tells the story of a Black woman who is living in poverty with her mother. She's already been through so much even before the story begins. She had just come out of living in a safe house for abused women after being in a horrific, nightmarish marriage. She's trying to get her son back after being tricked to sending her son to the father over the summer, and now he won't send the son back. She has no money. She's living in poverty and working dead-end jobs, and she finally gets a job at a for-profit college. And, she sees this as the opportunity of a lifetime because now she is working in a college system where she might be able to get a degree. She might be able to finally have a chance to use her skills and live the American dream. And things are great as they always are in the beginning. But then racism starts to happen. And she starts being targeted by people that she works with. And the leaders that are targeting her, they're carrying out the act of killing her career. But because they're leaders of power and influence, they're inspiring others, including HR, to conspire with them. And so you've got a whole group of people that are all derailing this woman's career. But she goes through a lot. She makes a lot of mistakes along the way. She suffers a lot of trauma. She just deals with so much professionally and personally. But she ends up learning from her mistakes and starts figuring out the right way to fight back, and not just fight back, but to survive the battle. And so this woman ends up getting hush money because she proved systemic racism in her workplace and kept her job. And the reason my book has become an international best-selling and award-winning book is because it actually teaches our people how to fight back. It's a roadmap. It's a survival guide that tells a very compelling story, but also gives you a blueprint that you can take back to your organization and start fighting back. And that's what has my book, this little humble book that I sold from the trunk of my car after I couldn't get a publisher, and I invested $22 in to publish it. 7 months later, it was everywhere, being read in dozens of countries, Amazon #1 bestseller, international best-selling and award-winning book. It's still #1 on Goodreads for best eye-opening African-American women's fiction, #1 for best Black female protagonist, #1 for books to improve your social justice awareness on racism. It's been featured in Forbes, and it's really changing lives. And so for me, that was part of the process of the person that I am now, who stepped into my power, which, by the way, is book 3. Book 3 is coming out in December, How One Woman Turned Black Pain into Power. Okay. But it took a lot to get there. And in book 2, which is what Dan and Mark were talking about, she keeps her job. Book 2 picks up where book 1 left off. And you now get to see what happened. And you start to realize that racism is not the only ism that Black women deal with in the workplace. you've got sexism, you've got narcissism, you've got the racism. Oh, that's still there, but you're also dealing with, misogynoir, and colorism is something that she's dealing with. On top of now finding herself in the middle of a interracial relationship. And there is a chapter in my book 2, called Chocolate and Vanilla Swirl, that seems to get a lot of attention because it's very, one of the things about the way that Hush Money is written, it's raw. So everything is raw, including the graphic happenings in that particular chapter.
So I did want to ask you a question, and just to verify this, Jackie, I heard that in addition to a book, there was a movie coming out, and it was called Jackie and Mark: The Love Story. When is that due in theaters?
Oh, so now you've got the dark humor.
Oh, I've always had the dark humor. Mark just makes it okay for me to bring it out.
Oh, that's hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious.
We could call it double fudge.
Oh my goodness. Keisha, help me.
I can always go back. She said raw just a few minutes ago.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Mama Robin, you hear your kids over here, right?
Clowning.
Keisha's like, and by the way, everybody, Keisha's yelling at me in like the private messages. Dan, he's married. I'm like, he said it first.
I'm speechless. I'm just gonna leave that alone.
No, okay. So in all seriousness, I was glad. I am glad that chapter got attention, because the sexualization of Black women is something that doesn't get talked about as much.
Yes.
So I'm appreciative of that. I want to pivot back because we have roughly 20 minutes. Kesha has a hard stop, and realistically, we want to make sure that we don't overstay our welcome on these lives. People typically have a time span. So first and foremost, Mama Graham made a really great point. She said, if you want to really support Jackie, buy it directly from her. Yes. Amazon takes away a lot of money from authors for putting it on the platform. When you buy it direct, all that money goes into the pockets. So here's what I want to touch on, because I know Mark wanted to bring it up. I want to go back to this education bill, because when we look at the gender and racial wealth gap, and Mark, of course, you brought up the 58 to 68 cents on the dollar that Black women make compared to white. When we look at the system, we look at the job market, we see the disparity within the gender and racial gap is caused in part due to the fact that a lot of jobs require educational requirements. And in doing that, the people that don't have to worry about that debt are typically the top 2%, which are white. So they're saying, okay, well, let's forgive $20,000. But you remarked to me before everybody got here, that's 15, 16%. That's nothing. So I'd love to hear your opinions on it.
Well, it's like you can see like the subliminal racism coming out on LinkedIn with people talking about this. Like saying, you signed a contract to get this loan, you should pay it back. You should have used this loan towards your education, not with buying cars, clothes, fashion, or spending it on other stuff. And it's like, I was 18 when I signed this contract. I had no idea what I was signing. I just went from, a year ago having to raise my hand to go to the restroom. Now I'm signing a contract to get $50,000. They don't teach, financial literacy, economics, interest rates, APR. They don't teach all of this in high school. Like they start teaching this. You know what? Here, I got my degree in economics. They didn't teach us a class on this until I was in my junior year. And it's like now you're you want people close to 30, 40, 50 years old to still pay for their sins of stuff that they learned at 18. To be honest, you had the whole Me Too movement that was happening, semi still is. If I had to pay for the sins I did as an 18-year-old that I thought was appropriate, that I thought was okay, I'll probably be in jail. But as you grow older and you learn and you look back, when this was all happening, I realized, oh, the girl who I thought I was joking with, me grabbing at her chest, that was rude. That was inappropriate. I shouldn't have done that. Or the girl who, once again, when I was 16, 17, slapping on her butt as she was walking by me, like that was invasive. I was getting too close to her. I was invading her, proximity. She maybe didn't like that. She didn't like it. She didn't ask me to. So as you grow older, you start learning and looking back on things that you didn't know were wrong and that you see they are now wrong. And you don't want to, commit the sins of your past still into the future. And that's how it is with these rates. You're having people who didn't understand what predatory lending was, signing these loan contracts at 18 and still wanting them to pay them back that they didn't know any better about. Not to mention, they didn't even know that while they were in school, what jobs were looking for. They didn't know what societal racism at that point. When I was 18, I didn't know as a black man, I would probably be getting paid maybe close to 79 cents on the dollar compared to a white man. I mean, I had no idea about none of this. Us millennials, we got led a life, go to school, get a 4-year degree, come out, get an entry-level job. You can make $55,000 a year. You'll be able to pay back that educational loan easily. And that's looking to be a lie compared to most millennials. Millennials, we're still trying to save up money and having kids later in life to pay these loans off. And due to the interest rates every single year, it's getting harder and harder to do. I graduated from college at about 22, 23 years of age. I had my bachelor's of economics, bachelor's of urban planning. Never got told I needed a master's of urban planning to actually get a job in the government with a planning degree. So that degree became useless. With the economics degree, mainly in that field, is who you know to get into these Fortune 500 companies. It helps that you have it, but you got to have connections to get into these companies. If not, then you're going to primarily be working a commission job, sort of like selling policies, life insurance, critical illness insurance, disability insurance for the mass mutuals and these other companies like that. Once again, I didn't know all of this. Add on top that I ended up getting epilepsy. And while I was able to get into some of these Fortune 500 companies, they're not going to sit around and pay you to have to stay at home maybe 2 to 3 days every 2 weeks because you're having a health scare. So, and when I see the remarks people are making, I didn't expect I wouldn't be able to pay off my loan. I was planning on it.
Right.
But unfortunately, life got in the way. Institutional racism, which I didn't know nothing about at 18, got in the way.
Right.
It's like you have people thinking like, if he was canceling the PPP loans, then I would understand some of the reactions because there's a whole lot of scams with that's been going on and people putting their scamming online. But regarding the educational loans, what I knew at 18, was false compared to me now at 33. I always expected I would pay off these loans, but once again, with life, health, and racism got into the way of all of that. And it's like, it's only $10,000. I mean, you have people who are making maybe $100,000 a year underneath that threshold, who have close to $250,000 in loans to repay. My wife, she ended up getting her nurse practitioner degree to be a provider. She has close to $140,000 she has to repay back in student loans.
Right.
So let's assume even if she was qualified, that's still $120,000 she has to pay back on top of interest rates. So you have people, senior citizens, that's going to sleep, dying day by day, knowing they're not going to be able to repay this debt off. You have people, 28 having to move back in with their parents because they see that the interest, not even the loan itself, just the interest on top of the loan amount is starting to become, insurmountable. And they understand, what, even to try to save money, I have to live with my parents. And even with that, that's not even helping. Along now with housing inflation happening.
Well, and Mark, and I can just jump in there, there was a section of my book that talked about, Ebony and her sister borrowing extra student loan funds to supplement, their income because their income wasn't enough to pay their bills. And as someone who worked in higher education on the finance side, that's very common, as you're going to school and you're pursuing your education. Many Black folks borrowed more than what they needed because they needed that extra income. They needed that supplemental income because what we get paid in a lot of the positions is a lot less than our white counterparts. And we're not making enough to survive. So we need that extra supplemental income. And so that's why many folks have, a lot of student loan debt because they not only used it to pay for their education, but they needed it to supplement their income so that they could go to school while also working their full-time job. Where some people chose to work, 2 jobs instead and not get a degree. If you wanted to be successful in America, and under the laws of meritocracy, you can do that by working hard and getting those educational credentials. You still need that supplemental income. So I know many people who supplemented their income by borrowing additional student loans so that they could work their full-time job and go to school.
And what you just said about meritocracy, I wrote a thesis paper on that in college. I think the idea of meritocracy is just a false reality, a fake American dream,
right,
put out there by corporations, capitalistic corporations.
It's good. This is good.
We're not all starting off on home plate. Some of us are already, like the Kardashians, they're already starting out on third base. By the time they turn 18, they're already at home. You have some people, they're starting off in the parking lot. They have to work hard just to get the home plate, to get up at bat. So it's this idea in America that we all start off and have all the same equal rights, equal pay, equal everything. Although it's a nice dream, it's just a false reality.
Well, let's touch on that real quick because you and Jackie brought something up that's really important. We're not all starting from the same playing field.
Right.
So if you have the top 2% that doesn't have to take out these loans and you're sitting there having to take out $250,000, $260,000 worth of loans, by the time you both start off in your first job, one person is $250 in debt. The other is breaking even. So now as this person goes higher, this person's just trying to get more towards the middle and break even. And that's, first of all, as a recruiter, that's a horrible part of our system that needs to be corrected. And I'll be the first person to say that because a lot of times you don't need these degrees for the jobs to do them properly. It's just putting the name and the plate on it. Like, it's like putting a Corvette body on a bug frame.
Right.
You can cover up a piece of shit, but it's still a piece of shit. So there's a lot to it, and there's not the incentive on behalf of corporations to make those changes that they need to. And Jackie brought up another point that was important, that let's say you go to school for 6 years, 7 years to get an MBA, to get a degree in economics, but the average pay for starting out is $70,000, but it's cost you 40 or 50 per year to go to school. The difference between those two is so small It
You're not even getting an equal chance to try to break in there and even make it matter.
Right.
Make a dent in what's happening when it comes to just being able to sustain. And I think that's the biggest piece that we miss, even thinking about job descriptions and interviewing and recruiting, all these pieces that need to go in as we're looking at marginalized individuals won't have the same capacity, or even looking at the resumes, Dan, some people don't even have access to make sure that even when they're presenting themselves on paper, I'm in that mindset now of getting a chance to talk with individuals and see their experience and put them in front of the right hiring team, kind of forcibly, to make sure that people get an opportunity to even get a seat at the table and have a conversation in that whole process.
Yeah, and you're right. And I want to give Mark a chance to speak in a minute because we're going to be closing out. But I do want to make mention that Mark brought up this idea of networking. And let's be honest, and Kesha will agree with me, across the board, whether regardless of race, who you know has become even more imperative, especially in the last 3 years. Now, if you're watching this, people need to do something about it. I'm one of those people that has made an attempt to do something about it. So I have a private group here on LinkedIn. We have 10,300 members. It's to provide you access to those resources that you need, both that are affordable. And in most cases, I do everything for free to try to do my part to narrow the gender and racial wealth gap. I'm not looking for a pat on the back, simply offering resources. Also, Mama Graham has offered to help people that need with their resumes. Let me tell y'all something. Two things. One is, if John was here earlier, he would have been cracking up the entire time. I'm pretty sure he would have had to go off camera. Like, I know John, and he would have been just dying laughing, pun not intended. But I will say, if you're looking for me to vouch for somebody, Mama Graham has a piece of my heart. I love her dearly. And she's just absolutely brilliant. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, hi, Sana. That's John's wife. So really what I want to do is two things. One is I want to make mention that Jackie is not the only author at the table. Kesha has a book. Please go to misskeshaspeaks.com. And you could take a look at the book there. It's Networking is Your Superpower. It's a beautiful book. Make sure that you order it. And Kesha, can they get copies autographed if they go through your website?
Absolutely. And that money comes directly to
You definitely want to give that money to Miss Kesha. Actually, the reality is all four of us here on the stage are in some capacity either having written or are writing a book. Mark will be coming out with one at some point. Make sure that you're paying attention. As soon as I have a free moment, I have a contract to write a book. I just need to find everything. Mark, before we go into the outro, which I haven't shared with you yet, but I know Kesha, I showed Kesha. If there's a takeaway that you want people to really truly internalize in listening to you and listening to your story, what is that takeaway?
And I got to become better professional speakers like y'all three. I gotta think about it for a second.
Take your time. Not too much time, but take your time.
Toastmasters. If there's a Toastmasters in your area, look up toastmasters.org. It's an amazing organization that will help you with speaking, and that's what I swear by it. Have been doing.
Yeah, I could do toast. I could do toast.
Yeah,
you could do roast. You can't do toast.
Get on it.
I could come up with a speech easily.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It prepares you.
Let's say the couple takeaways I would love for people to watching this. First off, go and follow me on my Instagram, Agents for Advocacy. 2, understand understand socioeconomics and people in your community. What you're going through may be different than what somebody else is going through. Understand things affect people all differently. Although, once again, the regarding the educational loans, although that may not be affecting you, although you may don't understand why it's needed, why your taxes going to it, somebody else right now may be jumping up and down for joy because they got a huge burden of stress off their body. And I would also say if you're not complaining about other things your taxes is paying for, then don't complain about this as well, because this is definitely more needed. And it just seems weird how you're considered a far right person if you don't want to help people, and a far left woke person if you're okay with helping people. And it seems like the whole aspects of politics have gotten just intertwined in every aspect of life. And unfortunately, it's a shame that has happened, but it's become sad. So just lastly, do your part to help out in the community whenever you can. If you have any donations, that old sweated up, stinking sweatshirt that you think nobody wants, there's definitely an unhoused individual who will treat that sweatshirt, you know, they will treat it like they love it because they're probably maybe sleeping outside right now with nothing. They will love that sweatshirt, especially socks and underwear. Those are the biggest thing you can help out to donate to people in the community. In the winter times, jackets. So just do your part to help out and donate if you can.
I appreciate that. So, there's a couple of things that I want to make mention of. First of all, you've done a great job speaking today. Please, and I'm not saying that to boost your ego. It's the truth.
I know every time I hear Jackie speak, I get some self-doubt right there. That sounds doozy right there.
Not everybody could be Jackie Abram.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thank you.
I want to speak after Jackie. Never again. I got to go first.
Well, here's the thing, and this is, I'm a very on the spot kind of person. So as we were talking, I was thinking, as you're growing Agents for Advocacy, I'm going to have you on once a month where you talk about everything that you got going on, spreading your message. You've got my group. We're going to blast everything out. We're going to talk about how you get involved. We'll have a discussion on the toy drive. I have a friend, Gabriel, who does an amazing podcast. I'll get you on there, and some others. Honestly, it's a lot of practice. So we're going to do that. I want to thank Ms. Kesha Kent for being here today. I want to thank Jackie Abram for coming back and being here. I know that you've been traveling and just had your first in person in a long time.
Yes.
Mark, Kesha and I didn't know what to expect when you were coming on. And I've told you that there was a lot of nervousness in having you on because of the delicacy of the situation. The truth of the matter is, through your personality, through your outlook, through your dark humor, you have turned this into something that people could look at and really be proud of. You are not a sum of one thing. You are the sum of everything. And I really appreciate you. I don't appreciate my stupid dogs right now. But I truly appreciate you for being here and speaking to everything that you've gone through. I'm going to remind everyone the book drive continues. Please reach out to Jackie or myself. If you want to support Agents for Advocacy, please go to the website. Please contact Mark, and we will absolutely get you in touch. I'm going to be honest. If you want to help Mark, this is what he needs. He needs a philanthropist that's going to be able to support his events that he's putting on, that isn't just a slapstick philanthropist, but is actually somebody that has an interest in the work and is willing to be present as opposed to just talking and throwing money at it. That is what he needs. He needs funding so that he doesn't have to do it every single event. And if you're able to do that, please step up. I know people have got deep pockets on the site, and I encourage you to use them because it's these types of nonprofits, these types of events that are going to actually make a difference. So instead of throwing money at Donald Trump, throw some money at Mark Talley.
I agree.
So if you happen to be good at website management or development, please contact me.
I've actually got somebody for you with that.
Oh, I love you, Dan.
I love you too. So with that, I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm going to go into a very special outro. Please stop the hate. Please do what you can in your community to support. We'll be here.